My name is Gerker. I'm your first friend in Alaska, and luckily for you, I'm also an associate real estate broker in South Central Alaska. Today, we are talking all about Anchorage, Alaska, and what's going on in the real estate market here. This is one of the largest real estate markets in the entire state, and so we got to keep this, analyze this market pretty well. Before we jump into that, though, do make sure you give this video a like, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and let's jump into it. All right, now the first thing we want to look at in the real estate market is what's going on in the single-family residential market. And the first thing that we see is that this time last year, for the number of properties that are available, we see that this time last year, there was about 160 available. This year, it's about 198. So that's a nice little uptick year over year. Before we get too excited, though, normally around this time of year for the month of March, where we have the most complete data, we do see that normally we'd see about roughly 570 properties available to about 700 available. So the fact that we're just at about 200, does show we're still only at about a third of the inventory that we normally do have around this time of year. That's still a positive step in the right direction, but inventory is still really low. Now, the next thing we see is that this time last year, about 160 properties sold, and this year we're seeing at about 150 actually sold. So we are seeing a bit of a decrease in the number of properties that are actually selling. That can obviously just, kind of fluctuate month by month, but we are more or less kind of down from where we were around the prior to COVID, because we see prior to COVID, that we'd normally see about 180, 190 properties usually selling. So we're down a little bit historically, but considering the fact that inventory is only about a third of what it normally is, that does give you a pretty good indication that in comparison to the inventory we have, there's still a pretty high demand for properties in Anchorage. All right, now looking at the average sold price for single-family properties in Anchorage, I'm not really happy with this stat because the numbers just ain't numbering. According to this, average sold price year to date last year was about $510,000, and this year it's about $512,000. So some people are probably thinking, oh, that means the market's really slowing down. We're about to have a crash. Just pump the brakes, okay? Just pump the brakes a little bit, because I don't think these numbers are really numbering very well. Because let me show you, looking for the month of January, average sold price in 2024 was about $465. This year it's about $520. In February, the average sold price went from $460 to about $490, and then for the month of March, it went from about $483 to about $423,000. So you see like this $20,000 to like $40,000 difference increase year over year, and yet they're still saying it's only gone up by $2,000. So the numbers just ain't numbering here. Big thing, I'm just going to tell you, I am seeing probably, we'll say about a $20,000 to about maybe $30,000 increase year over year for the sold prices here in Anchorage. Now, we're going to unpack things a little bit better in the summary and try to give you an idea as to why exactly we're seeing that much of an increase in the average sold price for single-family properties here in Anchorage, as because I know a lot of people don't really think the real estate industry is really like booming right now. So why is the average sold price still going forward? We'll talk about that in the summary, but let's go and switch gears and look at the condos, which, looking at the condos, we see that this time last year there were 67 condos that were on the market and sold, and they were just available, and really tired this morning, guys. Then we see that this year, the active inventory for condos is 90. So that is a step in the right direction. We do like to see that. And also, let's put it in historical context. Because normally around this time of year, prior to COVID, we'd expect to see about 280 to about 380 condos available. So I've said for the longest time that there was a big glut of inventory for condos in Anchorage. And everyone was trying to sell their condo, and then inflation happened, everything got a lot more expensive, and suddenly people sitting on these condos where they're not appreciating nearly at the same rate that a single family property will. That unfortunately is just not part of the deal you sign up for when you're buying a condo. But what is happening here, though, is a lot of people are now holding onto those units instead of selling them because they're more affordable than these single family homes, and there's usually less maintenance and everything else as well. So that's really the reason we see a lot of people kind of holding on to those condos now, which is too bad because, of all the times to sell, this would probably be it if they were trying to get out from under it, because there was a lot of people for a while that were just like, they're stuck. They couldn't sell their condo because there were so many of them. It was such a buyer's market in the condo market specifically. And now that's completely changed. And now everyone wants to hang on to it. So, go figure. Next thing we see is the number of condos that sold went from 69 this time last year to 57 this year. Now, believe it or not, this is more or less kind of what we would expect for the number of condos. I know less are selling, and there's also historically way less inventory than we normally see. I mean, as we already talked about, and the fact that we're still seeing 57 condos selling when prior to COVID, we'd normally see usually around like 80 to about 90 condos selling. So the fact that we're at about 60, even though the inventory has been cut so drastically, really does indicate that there's still a pretty good demand for condos. You just have to, make sure that it shows good and everything, and you're probably be good to go. Now, looking at the average sold price for condos in Anchorage, we see that this time last year, average sold price was right around $278,000. This year, right around $291,000, which means there's been approximately a 4.5% increase for the year over year, which for a condo owner, like that's great. Like I said, condos usually do not appreciate anywhere near as quickly as a single family home for a number of reasons. But the value proposition you get with owning a condo is the affordability of the monthly payments. It's not because the property is going to appreciate at a particularly fast rate. Just to give you some context, normally, prior to COVID, the increase was like 1%, or actually a decrease of 1% every year, just because there were so many condos available on the market. So average sold price is going up for condos, and that's probably going to continue moving forward just because there's so much demand for affordable housing still, and there's just not a whole lot of available inventory because, it's affordable now and everyone wants to hold on to it, whereas before they couldn't give it away, but now they really want their condos still. So, I guess that just is what it is. We'll talk more about it in the summary. Before we finish up today, though, just wanted to remind you folks that if you're looking at moving up here to Alaska, I do have a relocation guide for people who are moving up here. So if that's something that would benefit you, do reach out to my website. Link to subscribe is register is down below. You can go ahead and just go to the comments section, write relocation guide so I know what to send you, and I'll get that sent off to you. Also, this is just kind of a quick PSA. I actually get most of my bread and butter. I actually make most of my bread and butter from helping people buy and sell real estate. I have a lot of content here on YouTube. Absolutely love doing that. But my number one priority is helping people to actually buy and sell real estate. So I've had a number of people lately say, hey, we were going to work with you and loved your stuff, and we just didn't want to bug you because you looked like you were super busy with everything you post online. So absolutely breaks my heart. And I'm very strategic with my time. So I've got time for you if you're looking at buying, selling, or investing, any of that good stuff. So do reach out. Okay, that's out of the way. Let's keep moving forward. All right, now let's take a look at what's going on in the multifamily portion of the real estate market. So we see that this time last year, there were 59 properties available on the market, and now it's 68. Now, that is a good increase. I will take anything we can get, but as with the other asset classes, it's still not a whole lot available compared to what we had in previous years prior to COVID. We're normally sitting around like 155 to about 170, 180. So the fact that we're still sitting at about 70, really does show you, how far we've fallen as far as the inventory for multifamily goes. All right, as far as the units sold go, not a whole lot of movement in the market here in Anchorage for multifamily. It went from 19 sold this year to 18 sold this year. So not a whole lot of movement one way or the other. We are seeing still a pretty good demand for multifamily properties in Anchorage, as long as they actually pencil out. That really is the big thing. You can get like an absolutely incredible property, but it's not priced right, and investors are they're not going to bite. So yeah, still seeing a lot of demand out there. It just depends on the specific property in the area. But let's take a look and see what the demand has been. Prior to COVID, actually, we're seeing about 18 to about 28 properties selling. So we're seeing a drastic cut in the amount of inventory that's available, but still on the lower end. It's obviously on the lower end, but we're still seeing a kind of a normal level of properties being bought and sold, even though the inventory is much lower, which means in proportion to the amount of inventory available, there's a lot more demand than what there were a couple of years ago. Now, looking at the average sold price for multifamily properties in Anchorage, we see the average sold price has gone from about $586,000 this time last year to approximately $615,000 this year, which means we are seeing, again, just under 5% increase for the average sold price. And that's a pretty good appreciation if you are a multifamily property owner, because most of the multifamily property, the asset, is really kind of in the cash flow. And if you can get appreciation, like, that's great. It's not necessarily the reason in and of itself you go and buy multifamily property as an asset. Now, if you're trying to get appreciation, you're going to be better served finding some kind of a single family home than you're going to be served by getting a multifamily property, because multifamily, it does appreciate, usually not at the same rate as what you find with multifamily. Like, there's two different strategies you're going to use if appreciation is important or cash flow is important. Most people who do multifamily, it's because it's cash flow. Appreciation is just the cherry on top. But yeah, that's what we're seeing there. Okay, so let's go and do a quick summary here. If I'm a seller and I'm looking at this market, I know that this isn't the market that we saw back in the COVID era. So I'm gonna make sure we go through all of our reps and we make sure we do everything correctly to make sure that we're putting the best foot forward for your property and making sure that it shows in its best light. Because back then you could almost just take iPhone pictures and put it up there and somebody would be interested, and that's just not quite the case anymore. There are fewer buyers than what we had then, but also there's less inventory now than what there was then. So inventory does definitely make this more of a seller's market. I'm seeing more concessions being given though to buyers, so it's starting to shift a little bit, but it also it just comes down to the specific scenario that we're looking at. If I'm a buyer and I'm looking at this market, I would personally just wish that eventually this thing is going to slow down a little bit for me. But the reality is I am just not seeing this market collapse anytime in the near future, which I know a lot of people were just clamoring for, and it's going to happen eventually, and we're going to rush in and get our own and blah, 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 blah. And reality is collapses only happen when there's too much inventory available, not when there's too little. And that's really what we're seeing now. And the reason we have a shortage is because everybody refinanced or bought a couple of years ago when interest rates were super low, and they just, why would you leave a property now where the interest rate is like 2.5%, and now you'd have to go buy it like 6 or like upper 5%, okay? You need to take a look in what that actually does to your monthly payments. It goes from like, I don't know, $1,500 to like, nearly $2,500. Just trying to go find a property of similar value. So for that reason, a lot of homeowners with those low interest rates and currently have homes are just holding on to them, and that's a big reason that's causing the shortage. Now, another reason Anchorage is seeing a shortage is because there's just not a whole lot of new construction going on in Anchorage. They've made it difficult to build kind of on the city level, just with added red tape and inspection this, inspection that, blah, 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 fee this, fee that. Like, really, it's just it's just kind of sounds like the city like holding their hand out and saying gimme gimme to the builder, and builders are saying, yeah, I'm kind of done with that, and they're just going to the valley and building out there instead. Also, there's not a whole lot of land to build on in Anchorage at this point anyway, so kind of getting a shortage there as well. But that's really what I'm seeing there. If you are an investor, the big thing is just make sure your numbers actually do balance out. Know that a lot of properties here are going to be managed by the landlord themselves. They may or may not be good at being a landlord, so there might be some opportunity there. And also, you just have to try to find a property that is under rented. Like for instance, when I purchased a fourplex, the rents were right around like 13 something or rather, and they were like a good solid $200 under the month, under the market value. That's not even being greedy, it's just under the market value, and taxes and insurance have gone up, so this property was realistically losing money every month just because the landlord wasn't keeping up with what the actual market value of the property was. Like, it's not about being greedy, it's about having enough resources set aside so if and when problems come up with the property, you can take care of it quickly, because that is the deal you make with the tenants, that you are going to take care of stuff. And if you're being generous and being nice, but the water heater goes out and there's nothing you can do about it because you can't afford to do it, and you don't have any excess rent set aside to cover that, then you've not done your job. Also, for a lot of landlords right now, if you're not wanting to sell, good way to increase your value is just go in there and start doing some remodels and improving what you currently have. So that's been my market update for Anchorage. I hope it's been useful. If you have questions, reach out to me at the website down below. I'd love to hear from you. Talk with you later.